Hello, hello, Liz. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Can't complain, can't complain. It's starting to warm up a little bit more where I am. It's been the longest winter ever, so I'm ready for the rain to go away. Like I'm sure it hasn't been. I've heard in California it's been a little bit colder this year too, right?
Yeah, I'm out in Virginia,
Oh,
but
okay.
from my wife tells me the rain has been absolutely insane, and it's come to the point where they're actually fed up with it. We're
Yeah.
talking about like, "Drought, we need rain." Now they're like, "Ah, we're done. Well, this is it. No more."
We got it out of the system. Let's never go back.
And from my perspective, like, no, we need all the rain, but I'm not having to experience it. So,
Yeah, yeah, lucky for you. So, Virginia, though, what brings you there? Are training stuff or visiting somebody? What's going on over on the East Coast?
no, my head coach, he moved out here before the last fight camp. His wife is from here. She had a job opportunity. So he's like, let's do it. I support you. He came out here and I told him, like, hey, you're never going to get rid of me. I'm sorry. Um, you can try, but I'm just never going to go away from you. And so I follow him out here for my fight camps now.
All right, fair enough. I mean, do you like that? It adds a little bit of some extra travel and an experience for the fight camp and whatnot, or do you like to stay home? How do you feel about this?
Well, it's been nice. My wife and I have talked for a while about me going away from my fight camp so I can focus just on that. She gets into the split idea of like, hey, I know you're tired and you just worked out for 9 hours, but can you help with the kid? Can you do this? I'm like, I'm dead.
Yeah.
you know. But it's also times where she's like, hey, I think I can pick up our kiddo from school today. Let me go do that. And I'm like, no, training got rescheduled. I can't do that. And then she's got to reschedule everything.
Right.
So she's got a set schedule for her. And then anytime that I need to move anything around with training, the only person that suffers is me.
Hmm.
So it's great. Like I'm like, yeah, I got 2 extra training sessions in today. I'm exhausted. I love it.
There you go. I mean, so how recently has this been then? Like the last couple fights, or?
Yeah, so my last fight, the previous fight camp was the first time that I did this, the second time that I've done it now.
Okay. So, I mean, man, you can kind of, I know it's just been once, but you can see kind of maybe the results of that because one of your best performances of your career, Liz. I mean, you went out there, dominated with complete ease, really. I mean, I want to ask you, like, how was this so easy? But now I'm kind of feeling like this was maybe a reason why with the extra focus. Like, I mean, just how satisfying was it, first of all, to put to rest any controversy from the first Velasquez fight, but then to go out and do it the way you did in a brilliant finishing sequence too with the submission, like that was about as perfect as it gets, I would say.
Yeah, it was really satisfying, just because I feel like she put so much doubt on Mike Beltran as a ref, and without any bias, he's been one of my favorite refs and most trusted. Like if he's going out and he's refing one of my teammates or myself's fights, I know that he's going to make the best decision to protect the fighters. That he's going to make a good call. It's never a bad. I've never felt like he's made bad calls. So for her to put any doubt on somebody who I'm like, no, I see him and I'm like, oh God, my teammate's safe. Like if he stops it, he saw the right thing. Even if it's on the losing side, it was stopped for the right reason. It's never like, oh, 20 strikes later, they're unconscious, woken up, unconscious,
Right.
put back to sleep. It's never any of that. Or the arm's been broken 2 times over and they've tapped and you're not seeing it. Um, he gets in there and he's somebody who I'm like, great, this is a ref who I know is going to make the right call. Even if it's not what I'm happy with, it's always the right call.
Hmm.
So for her to put any doubt and any question on him was really upsetting to me. And then for her to turn around and try and sue Bellator for any bias that they had was crazy to
Wow, I
me.
never heard about that.
Yeah, that's how she got the rematch. And then and all the trash talking she was doing, it definitely let me feel safe on letting everything go and not feeling bad about hurting her in any way, shape, or form.
Well, that's got to be a nice relief to have. I mean,
Yeah,
go out there.
absolutely. I think in the past there's always been a kind of like, okay, I need you to hit me first. You hit me now, I can
Right.
hurt you. Like this, like, oh no, 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 you've done enough. I need
Yeah.
to shut your um and seek violence in this fight.
Yeah, no kidding. And that you did. And I mean, so like with all these things considered, Liz, like where exactly would it rank amongst your best wins? I mean, you can compare it. I mean, sure, it was a great feeling, getting the title in the first place, but then, like I said, a real stamp with this one. Was it, the most satisfying overall for you?
Yeah, I definitely say it was probably one of the most satisfying fights for me. Absolutely. Because it just, even any doubts that had all of a sudden been cast for our previous fight, and anybody questioning anything, it
Hmm.
helped me feel more secure in my abilities and my standing and where I am with Bellator and where I am with the division. and just in reassured me that I need to trust in myself and go out there and give everything that I have. And when I do that, I perform and I win. So it was definitely probably one of the best fights for me.
Yeah, no kidding. Hard to deny that. And it was the first time that we've caught up since you are champion now, Liz. And I got to ask you, too, like, is it everything you hoped it would be? Is this like been all that you imagined and dreamed about, since it's become a reality?
No, I think I'm just that person that's always hungry,
Mm,
and the thing that's really on my bucket list was to get a belt. I did that, and but I think when I got the belt the first time, and I walk out of there and they're like, "Hey, just heads up, you got to know what you're walking into." I'm like, "Wait, why is there
yeah.
any next? What else is on here?" So that kind of took a little bit of luster off that experience, and so it really had to be the second one. And so for me, the other things that are really there on the bucket list that I'm hoping will be done and enjoyable in their experiences, I really want to fight for Bellator as a 135 champ, and I want to fight in Japan. Those are the two
Mm.
other checklist marks for me that I really have to achieve.
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, would be really cool to see you in the ring or something with Japan involved, and that's always a possibility for the end of the year. But I mean, have you made any traction with 135, like poking at Scott Coker and getting him to feel any ways about it?
I hope so. I'm trying to drop it as much as possible and say it as often as possible. I'm hoping that he'll be there in Hawaii and I'll get a chance after the fight to be like, "Hey, we should do this."
Yeah, yeah. And it's more of a maybe an accomplishment thing for you than a weight cut thing, right? I know you've never been a person who struggled with the weight cuts of whether at flyweight or bantamweight, but that's it's more about the goals, kind of.
It's about the goals, but then honestly, I feel like as much as the lack of struggle to make it to 125 is because I know I have the discipline to do it,
Right.
but it's not for a difficulty. And if other people saw my DEXA scans and read the reports and stuff, they would never recommend I'd ever go to 125.
Mm.
So I definitely think it would be much healthier for me, and I'd be much more curious to see how I could perform at 135, knowing what I can do at 125. I think it would be better at 135, and having a better understanding of what it means to really be a professional athlete and how to take care of myself. I think I can do better at 135. And then, of course, the whole double gold is probably the most appealing part of it.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, it would be interesting too to see you kind of go back with bantamweight after. I remember we talked about, the experiences you gained and just learning how to maybe appropriately approach the weight cuts with just the things you learn over the time. And especially now with having to cut more weight with the flyweight stuff. Like, I mean, there's no denying there'd be a better version of you back up at 135 now with that opportunity, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. The first few years of fighting, I was still fresh out of the Marine Corps and just that going the dumb way, like, "Hey, I don't really have money. I'm just going to eat a can of tuna today, but that's what I can afford." And making it work. And all right, I'm going to lift weights 7 days a week for the max weight every time so I
Right.
can't walk. They were just, and I didn't believe that massages were actually helpful because I'd never actually had a good massage to understand.
Right.
I thought, I'm like, "You're just paying to take a nap. There isn't anything good
Yeah.
about this. Like, do that
Kind of a
for
ripoff.
me." Yeah, exactly. Um, and just so many things where I just didn't realize how important it was. And the injuries that I did experience at 135, if I had done the recovery right, I don't think those injuries would have happened.
Right.
And so who knows how that career would have played out. I ultimately may not be where I am today. So it was definitely a necessary part of the travel and the experience and who I am. But if you can get rid of any injuries, of course, I would have
Yeah.
much preferred to, but I have a different outlook on how to achieve 135, and I'd be really excited to see what I could do in the 135 division now.
Yeah, definitely a very interesting thing to think about. So fingers crossed that maybe we can get closer and closer to that after this one, as we got to go to Hawaii first, which is always an experience. And I mean, for you, Liz, like, how exciting is it for you to return to Hawaii to fight again and get this one another rematch coming up? So you're kind of getting people out of the way here double. But yeah, just how exciting is it for you not just to get another fight and defend your title and all that, but go back to Hawaii for it? I'm sure it was a cool experience, especially with your affiliations with Hawaii in general, Ilima and whatnot. Like, how exciting is it?
Yeah, it's really exciting to go out to Hawaii. I don't know anybody that doesn't love Hawaii. I think everybody's a fan. It's beautiful there, great weather, great food, great culture. There's no bad things to be said about Hawaii. So what better a place to go and enjoy it? with a universally loved place where you can have fun after. And then I get to be part of a 2-day event. So I get to
Right.
stick around and I get to see Bellator, not only Bellator, but Ilima fight. And that to me is always great because I love being able to stick around and help support the next card in some opportunities where I'm like, no, I got to get back. I've got other things to take care of, where I get to stay around. I get to help support Bellator. So that's always great to do, and a wonderful place at that.
Totally. And did you get to do? I mean, do you get to train with Ilima now, kind of the same amount now that your coach is, on the other side of the country, or is it, probably a little bit less? I would imagine. I'm sure maybe you do sometime, when you're out of camp for sure. But how is kind of that been?
We never train together anymore at all. No,
Oh, dang.
I made the move to train with the yeah, I made the move to train with the arena, which has been the success of my career since I got in Bellator. I made that change, and not to avoid Ilima. I was just trying to. I was spread thin. I was trying to make it back to 10th Planet all the time,
Hmm.
and also where my training was going on at the arena, and then I would train 45 minutes to 2 hours away to, if it with a different coach, and run back to 10th Planet, and it just really wasn't working out for me. So once I started to focus and just get my attention on the coaches that I felt like worked best with me and I worked best with, it worked out for the right decision. Unfortunately, that meant that I missed out on being able to train with Ilima.
Yeah. I mean, hey, you got to do what's in your best interest. It is a singular sport at the end of the day. And I mean, hey, it might be better if you guys want to fight each other in the end, which we'll talk about that soon enough. But first, DeAnna Bennett is the first order of business. Got to take her out one more time. Liz did a great job in the first fight, obviously. And, your rematches have been pretty not too terrible as of late anyway. So, I mean, what do you expect from her in this matchup? If she'll change anything, like someone who has experience with rematches like yourself, what would you say that maybe how do you think she will approach it, I guess? Because when you're the loser going into a rematch, the dynamics are a lot different, right? Like, how do you kind of
Yeah.
see things from her perspective, maybe?
Yeah, I think in our original facing, the only time that she had dominance in that fight was really, it came down to her missing weight so far off the mark, being into the next weight division, that on times where I'm like, yeah, I should be able to move you, but we both stepped on the scale and you were already grossly overweight.
Right.
So by the time that you rehydrate and I rehydrate, we're not even close to in the same weight classes anymore, you know? And so that was the only time in the fight where she had any dominance, because I couldn't move her body. She weighed too much and I was struggling to do it as strong as I am. And so for her to be eligible to fight for the belt, that's not a possibility. She doesn't make weight. She can't. So I don't know if she realizes the only time where she succeeded was because of her weight. And
Mm.
that can't possibly be in this fight. So she's got to have a different game plan coming in. If she comes in the same way, it's going to play out much differently and a faster success for myself. Um, and I haven't seen, even though she's been winning, I haven't seen any change in her game and any differences. But if there's one thing that I've learned in facing people, is when they come out a second time, they want to change up all the things they did previously. So you can't bank on them being the same fighter. So I'll prepare, and I've studied enough to know the nuances of what she does and to be able to see those quicker and to be able to be prepared for those. But I'm also prepared that she could come out as a completely different fighter. And I've really tried to focus on just myself and being the best version. And it's the same thing I did in my last matchup against Velasquez, is focus less on what she could do and focus on what I needed to do.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad you mentioned the weight thing, because that's kind of been a little bit of a problem throughout her career. She started as a strawweight, and, well, didn't start as a strawweight, but she did go to strawweight at a point when she was with Invicta, had some struggles there. Obviously, she's not a strawweight anymore and had some issues, beyond that, obviously, but been fine the last, two fights at least. So I got to wonder, though, like, is that a worry or a concern of yours at all, Liz, that, maybe that'll happen again to you?
Yeah, I think when I first found out that the rematch was against her, there was definitely that insecurity of like, holy crap, I don't want to go through this entire fight camp and put my body through hell. And I do the right thing and I make weight only for her to not make weight, because if she doesn't, the fight gets pulled. And the last thing I want is to put my body through all of that unnecessarily, because I come to fight. Cool, maybe you get paid partially or you get paid your full fight, but that's not why I'm there. I'm there to put on a show. I'm there to test myself and to push myself and put on a show for everybody. I'm not there to get sidelined because somebody else couldn't make weight. So that was definitely an issue, and I had to come to terms with that and realize, like, no, I'm sure that she understands what's on the line by not making weight, and she's been fixing that these last two fights. So I'm sure she's going to show up on weight. So I got to be ready to go as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You got all you can do is take care of yourself anyway, control what you can control, and everything else will fall into place, right? So we'll see how it shakes out there. And speaking of Ilima again, not to look past DeAnna, Liz, but I got to ask you, just because you guys have set the foundation so well with talking about the hope to fight each other, and so I mean, with her fighting Kana, fellow past opponent of yours the night after, like a big spot to be in for both of them, like seems pretty likely that the winner would get a title shot. So, I mean, do you think that if she wins, that would be next for you? And like, I mean, double retirement would be cool. Not that I want you guys to stop fighting, but like the story of it all would be pretty neat. So, I mean, just how do you kind of see things shaking out? I guess with the next two fights specifically for you.
Yeah, to me, it definitely makes sense that the winner of their fight would be the next up to be the contender and to be able to fight. And there's really, unless Ilima for some reason experiences an injury, I don't see Watanabe winning this one. And not to speak illy on her. I just think that when it comes to the matchup, that Ilima is just where Watanabe would succeed would be on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And Ilima is not somebody to scrap with on the ground. She's very aggressive and she's unrelenting when it comes to the pursuit of the submission. And I think that that's not something that Watanabe can be able to endure and to be prepared for. So I see the win going for Ilima, which would ultimately probably mean that she and I are facing each other. Oops, almost lost her there. Sorry.
All good.
But I'm hoping just with her being that she's been talking about retirement,
Mm-hmm.
having had a difficult weight cut the last time and not making weight, that if for some reason we do face that, it would make sense to me to do that at 135.
Hey.
She doesn't have to worry about it. It could be her fight out and my fight introduction to 135. That to me make the most sense. If it's Ilima, if Watanabe does win it, then I want to fight her in Japan at the end of the year.
Oh man. You got the best possible options here now that you bring it full circle like that, Liz. Like whatever happens, you're sitting pretty. That's wow, yeah. I mean, again, we got to get the 135 thing to actually happen, but I love that idea. I think that's a really cool way with all the elements to it. And if you're both game, then why not, right? Like.
And now we have the new factor is that Chris Cyborg hasn't re-signed with Bellator at 145. So with that said, a lot of the 145ers were previous 135ers that saw that there was a great opportunity in fighting for Bellator, knew they could never make 125 and 145 was too big. But when you have that opportunity, just like me, I prefer to fight at 135, but Bellator only has a 125, 145 division. So for them, they moved up. For me, and when we're side by side, you can see the other 135ers and they're enormous.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it feels like if she doesn't re-sign, it really makes sense to have a 135 division.
Yeah, I mean, you could be onto something there. It's going to be a situation to watch for, and especially when you see like the likes of Sarah McMahon, your old fellow UFC bantamweight, coming in. Like, it's a very interesting time for the featherweight division in Bellator, and we'll see if we can get the best of all worlds there at 135. But all right, Liz, before I let you go, though, I do want to get your thoughts on another past opponent of yours because it was a big deal that we saw recently. I'm sure you know where I'm going. Valentina Shevchenko finally, lost the flyweight title to Alexa Grasso, which, I mean, just brilliant stuff from her. Pulling off the upset, becoming the first Mexican female champion. I mean, just what did you make of this? Were you surprised, as I'm sure most of us were? Especially, I was more surprised by how she won. I thought that she could had a good chance of doing it. Put some respect on Grasso, but for her to win the way she did was the craziest part to me.
Yeah, I was honestly so impressed with Grasso's performance. I think that not Velasquez, but I think that Valentina honestly kind of took a little bit of her foot off the gas. I think that she didn't expect that Grasso had the ability to defeat her. I was fortunate enough to get to know Grasso early in her MMA career when she was kind of tying the pieces together between jiu-jitsu and boxing. And to see how far she's come is so phenomenal. And she is such a sweetheart and such, to me, a great champion, a great representation when it can be that's a wonderful person to have the belt. And to think that she studied it and saw the moment and that's how she got her, to me, speaks to the volume and her ability of her coaches and her to implement that game plan and to see that opportunity. I think that, and if you saw in the post-fight interview when they asked Shevchenko and they saw, they're like, oh no, you could see that like she was okay with the idea that she made a mistake and Grasso just jumped on it and capitalized, but it was just a mixed opportunity instead of like, no, I studied your flaw and took advantage, and that
Right.
lit a fire in Shevchenko that makes it to me an exciting rematch, because there's one thing I know about her is she does not let the same mistakes happen ever again.
Yeah.
So it'll be I would really like Grasso to have an opportunity to fight some other people in the division before she has a rematch with Shevchenko. But I don't know, a rematch with her, I think, is going to be a whole different beast when she faces her a second time. She's not going to question anything about Grasso, and she's not going to treat her as though she's not a worthy adversary.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wanted to ask you about that too, especially with all the rematch talk that we've already done here. Like, I mean, how do you think it will go? I mean, it seems like I like how you say about her maybe fighting and defending against some people first, but very, very unlikely that's going to happen. So, do you think that kind of hurts her chances? I mean, is how would you see at this exact moment if it does happen next, the rematch with them playing out?
Yeah, I do think that Grasso is really skilled, and I do understand that they studied it and she was able to capitalize on that. But I think that's a mistake Shevchenko won't make again. And so if that was the one chink that she saw in her armor that won't be there, she's going to make sure that it's gone the second time. And while she let her get the best of her, I don't think she would do it in a second time. I think Shevchenko will come out looking for blood and truly looking to hurt Grasso.
Yeah, yeah, especially somebody like her. They call her the Bullet for a reason. So very fascinating to see that flyweight title rematch go down, but very excited to see yours as well, Liz. I mean, there's a lot going on these days. Very exciting to watch, and always great getting to chat with you. So I appreciate you taking the time before flying out to Hawaii and having all the fun there. So best of luck, safe travels, and everything. And I'm sure we'll catch up again in the future. But until then, yeah, can't wait to see it.
Thank you. And it was great catching up with you as well.